if we can get the last piece of the puzzle to fall in place, then something might actually happen this year, which is exciting and scary.
Yes, it's always scary.
Okay.
And exciting. It's a fear factor making things real.
Yeah.
Because once you start the ball rolling, it's a bit of an avalanche.
Yeah. In this video, we're going to talk about the process of why we chose to work with an architect, how we found our architect. I thought I'd give us all a sun break. I'm currently in Mesa, Arizona, and I wanted to do a little fill-in segments on our architect. All of our early time with the architect we didn't film because I had no concept I was planning to film the build of this project and share with you at the time. So unfortunately we don't have any of those early days on the project. So I feel really lucky that actually we found the person we did.
I could sit around and wait all day. You lay easy on my mind, like a candle I just burn away. All we really have is time. All we really have is time. I don't wanna waste it on anybody. Take it with anybody but you.
It's March 10th and we came up here. It wasn't supposed to snow till tomorrow. It's been snowing all afternoon. And we were supposed to be putting a wall in, and instead we're doing a massive amount of shoveling again. And while we were at Cable Lumber earlier today, I got a notice on my phone that now there's a winter storm warning and it could snow another foot. I'm just... this is just really... It's been a really challenging 5 months, and I'm ready for it to stop snowing. And
I don't wanna waste it on anybody. Take it with anybody but you.
wow, this is the roof. This really takes the cake. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's gonna take a lot to melt this.
What was it they used to say? Seeking you will find. There is nothing in you that is fading. All you ever do is shine. make it with anybody but you. I don't wanna waste it on anybody. Make it with anybody but you.
I would say overall, we were really happy with our experience working with an architect. From the first meeting with Stephen, we really liked what he showed us, and maybe we should have deviated in a couple spots. Flat roof. But I think overall, he really gave us what we wanted. And so I would say overall, the process went pretty well, and Stephen really listened to everything we had to say. Let's talk through the construction options we investigated before choosing the final construction type.
There's a company out there that sells very nice looking cabin plans, and they'll sell you those blueprints usually for a few $1,000s. It seems very appealing because, you know, the price is inexpensive, the designs look very nice, so it's like a cabin you'd really like to have. You're not gonna get this one. The difficult one is they all of them gave a warning or a statement on their website that you would have to work with like a local architect, or there might be additional fees involved to meet your local building codes, right? They didn't say that this plan that you would buy would meet local building codes, so that seemed to be a bit of a risk. If I went back in time, I might, right? I might actually buy plans, because the architect became much more expensive than the estimates were, and we kind of budgeted for.
One of the things we had looked at for a long time was prefab building. We had really intended to do that, but when we started looking into the costs at the time, it seemed prohibitive. There's a lot of extra costs that you don't see when you're like, oh, the price of a prefab is this.
The other one that we looked at was prefab homes. A couple things I'd say about the prefab homes, like when you start looking at them, I think a lot of them do look nice. They're well designed and well constructed, but a lot of them, they're essentially made to ship on a semi-truck trailer. They're kind of shaped like a semi-truck trailer. They tend to be long and skinny, and like a lot of the living spaces feel kind of cramped. And I think the other thing you get into is when they bring that, if you want, like our property, like our home site is about 350 feet back into the woods. Is somehow they have to get that your new house on that very long semi-trailer and a giant crane back into the woods. There have to be enough space to lift your house, swing it, and get it onto the concrete pad you build. So that can be a real challenge, right? If you want this kind of like woody setting. You would have to clear a lot of land. It's a real consideration, and some of the companies that sell prefab homes even require that you fly one of their people to your home site so they can judge that can get it done. The other thing is that sometimes those prefab homes, like the price they advertise as like estimated price, seems pretty appealing and quite cost effective. But often once you start adding on like the lot, the foundation, drive, septic, wells, pulling electrical power, the price balloons very quickly. Now in hindsight, they might have been a pretty good price point for us. It seemed much more expensive than like the option we finally went with.
Once we decided we weren't going to go with prefab and we weren't going to go with buying pre-made plans, that led us directly into our architect decision. Then the decision point became, what type of building are we going to be able to do? Are we going to have to do traditional stick build, or are we going to be able to do the SIP panel build, which is what we had hoped and what our architect had hoped. So we didn't even really entertain this thought, but traditional, like, what do they call it, like stick build, like how everybody builds a building with 2x4s. We thought that was the only option we would have up here.
You looked at, a stick-built house, like a traditional, wood-framed house, but we couldn't get a contractor for years to build that.
Since it turned out we couldn't find anybody to do any building up here and we became our own GCs by default, that made the decision pretty easy. SIP panels it was.
Ultimately, we went with a SIP panel house.
And that was the third option, was a SIP panel. That's how our architect designed this place. To our surprise, we found out when we started talking to people and finding somebody who would assemble the SIP panel build that was the way forward. Additionally, our architect knew the owner of the SIP panel company and was eager to work with him, and it was great for us because they had a direct line of communication, and I think that helped him during his planning phases in his drawings. And in the end, it really helped us when we had some important questions on the job site.
The panels are constructed in a factory of design specifications that your architect partners with their design firm on. And then you find contractors that specialize in SIP panel construction. And they will assemble your SIPs for you. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, in the SIP panel install process and what the build was like.
We're going to do a separate story on more details on SIP panel building, the process, so stay tuned for that. So I think once you kind of look into your different journeys you could take, one starts kind of becoming more evident. We had talked to a number of architects that basically all told us they couldn't either meet our timeline or they couldn't meet our budget. And that was very disappointing. I think in the end, we've realized maybe some of the timing or the expenses were actually pretty realistic, but we wanted to get going on the project. So as a lot of things with our crash pad, we owe a huge thanks to Mo at Rome Adventure Base Camp. Our architect had actually stayed at a cabin up there and talked to Mo quite a bit, and so Mo actually knew that he liked working on smaller properties and he liked the challenge, so gave us his information.
Yeah,
Steven!
I got it right. is always good.
Yeah, well, somebody needs to light a fire.
Yeah, okay.
I've never gotten there without you, so we really appreciate that you
Sure.
had those connections. And
I'll make a point of just stirring in all four directions.
okay.
The design process with our architect was an initial meeting in November after we bought the property, and then we had basically 3 subsequent meetings. Because I have a background at working with designers and understanding design process, I felt like it was really helpful in the process of working with our architect, and I was his main contact, which I of course loved. I have to say, and Kurt would agree, that we are really happy with the architect we chose, and he really listened. And when we had our meetings with him, it was clear he was listening. It was clear he had looked at our design brief, and he was there to add value and ideas that we didn't see or know that we needed. And additionally, as we're going to get into in another episode, we could not find a builder or a general contractor to save our lives during the heat of pandemic building. And he really served as a GC in some respects for us and made key connections and had key learning information for us that we would have never gotten to on our own. So he was integral. He really looked over our design specifications document that I talked about in the last video and our list. We just basically let him draw something up. It's like when you get a piece of art. You want to see what somebody's going to create for you. We didn't want to drive the process too much. We wanted him to listen to what we had to say and then see what he executed. Stephen was really easy to talk to and communicate with. I really enjoyed working with him. He has a very kind demeanor, he's helpful, and he's very interested in new technologies, and he really thought about how he could incorporate our wants and needs and desires into a very small square footage. There is a number of stages you go through with your architectural drawings and your architect. The first is his first presentation after reading through our design specs and meeting with us on Zoom a couple of times. And I can't remember if it was the first meeting or the second meeting, but he had drawn our crash pad in Autodesk, and so it was super exciting the first moment we got to see the building in 3 dimensions, and he could zoom in to the inside and you could kind of get a feel of what it was going to look like on the inside. From there, once we were ready to sign off on everything, he worked on the architectural drawings so that they were at a point we could have a build set and start sending those out to people we wanted to work with. One of the moments when this project almost didn't happen last summer was early July, trying to figure out our structural engineer situation. Find out what's going on with the structural engineer.
Sure. I've reached out to to a bunch last week and 2 responded positively. So
Okay, well that's progress. And he was having a hard time finding somebody, and I think that's because there's so much building going on. When it seemed like it was all hinging on that and it was never going to happen, he found somebody. Thank goodness we did that, because I don't think this building would have survived all the heavy snow on it this winter. If we hadn't had a structural engineer determine exactly where the load-bearing walls needed to be, and that goes all the way down to the footing. We're getting ready to go up to the property to meet with the concrete contractor tomorrow. Meanwhile, they want to lay footings tomorrow when we're expecting the big pour on Monday. So I spent my morning both on the phone with my architect and canning tomatoes. Now got my hair cut, and I am headed over to the printer to pick up the correct blueprint, and I have the correct set for the builder. And it's specified in the cement diagram for the people laying the cement where the extra weight and footing needs to go to take the weight of the load-bearing walls all the way down into the ground.
Not poured yet. They don't go down to frost depth. They only go down 6 inches. So this section, this 2 by 3 foot section, which supports the center beam, isn't there yet. It's not poured.
The other set of drawings that our project required was the SIP panel drawings. Our architect knew the owner of the SIP panel company that we worked with and had a lot of conversations that we weren't involved in, and involved the structural engineer in those conversations. And between those 3 parties, they finalized the SIP panel drawings that were used by everyone for the final construction phase. Each panel is numbered and needs to go up in a certain way. And the SIP panels come with electrical channels in them for the electricians to run their lines, and those are all pre-made at the factory. And so all that is detailed out in the drawings as well. And so the architect is involved in that entire process. Really, from the first set of drawings we worked with until we were ready to execute, we only changed a few things, like we added on a couple feet to the Kurt's office, a spare bedroom. We took some things out of the bathroom area, like the washer and dryer, and moved that to the kitchen. Once we visited the property for the first time and we saw like the orientation, we actually flipped the building. I guess over like this. So I'm standing where the screen porch is going to be.
that was initially planned to be on the east side of our property, and now it's on the west side of our property, so we can get this afternoon sun and actually sit out here and see people biking on the road and up our driveway. In the end, we're going to have everything that we had on our list that we wanted. So this is the summary of advice we have when working on a build and being your own GC, which first of all, we just never would recommend. Go slow, don't rush the process. Really vet your architect. Make sure that you can easily communicate, you have a good rapport, there aren't any red flags coming up. As soon as there is a red flag, listen to it. Do not ignore a red flag. Early on, when we told somebody we wanted to go ahead, I would say there wasn't a red flag. There were fireworks that went off, and we backed out of that before we signed any paperwork. Shortly thereafter that, we agreed to work with Stephen. So red flags are hugely important. Listen to your gut. Don't let time dictate. One of the things we didn't always have the opportunity to do because we were so busy is we didn't always get the sequence right for getting estimates. Get estimates before you start building. You could save a lot of heartache and a lot of stressful moments, and oh boy, could we have ever. I would get all those estimates. It's hard to get people to give you estimates until you have like a pretty good set of blueprints. I think where we really ended up getting in a bind was the flat roof. That ended up being 3 times more than we expected, and it was way more than our architect also expected. We could have gotten an estimate perhaps earlier in the process based on the current state of the economy, the pandemic affecting things, shortages, whatever affected that price. And maybe we could have changed direction on that. I think we all felt bad that that became so difficult and such a fire drill in mid to late October. Another thing that I think helped us is both Kurt and I have a lot of professional experience managing very large projects and working with teams. And if you don't have that, don't even try and be your own GC. No, it will be a multi-year journey unless you don't care about cost and can pay for someone to make the decisions for you. We had not intended this to be a multi-year journey, but we have realized it will be a multi-year journey. Without Stephen, we would have never gotten anywhere near as far as we got, and I don't think this building would be standing.
I mean, sitting here on, March 3rd, we don't have any of it, and by May 3rd, you could have all of it.
All we really have is time.